Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to be talking about this topic because it is something that has been requested of me. So we're going to be talking today about EVALI and its relevance to peer pressure in today's youth. Obviously, we're going to be defining EVALI. We're going to be talking about peer pressure and the events leading up to what EVALI looks like. Hello, my name is Ruth Del Pino. I'm a prevention educator at the Mercer Council for drug addiction and alcoholism. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Global Studies, Political Science, and American Studies. I'm certified in TEFL, LST, leadership skills training, and leadership in general. I do want to preface with saying why this presentation. This is not to scare you. This is to inform you. This is also not a parenting class. You are the best parent for your child. You know them the best. This is also perspective. So my perspective is shaped by my experiences. Anything that I come across as a prevention educator, I put in here. Any sorts of professionals that I talk to when I'm going through these sorts of subjects that are pretty new to me. I always consult professionals and professional resources. This is also evidence informed and some evidence based, but more so it's me collecting information, collecting data, putting it in a presentation for you to make it digestible so that when you're doing your own research, this could also be another tool that has this consolidated resources for you. So I don't think we're going to have any questions, but I do want to talk about what does EVALI look like? And I do have some pictures here. I know that we sort of all know what lungs look like nowadays, considering everything going on in the world. But I do have some pictures here. This is actually in this upper right-hand corner. Scar tissue in the lungs that have been damaged through EVALI. And if those of you that don't know what EVALI is, it is the name given by the CDC after they had sort of newly identified a lung disease that was linked, that they couldn't find what it was linked to. Melissa, I know that you know the particular like what it stands for. It's just too long for me to remember. So if you just chime in, that would be great.
It's electronic vaping lung associated illness.
Thank you. So, and they sort of came up with this name because they had a lot of people coming through the system, and they were like, why are we having so many people with the same symptoms, but they're all varying in age? And they had people as young as 13 to 85. So obviously that's a big age range. And they were like, oh no, is this a new disease that we need to sort of start looking into? Is this something that we need to start evaluating? And they found that the only commonality that they had was that all of them had vaped at one point before they had these diseases. And I do want to put some numbers out there. They were doing monthly, the CDC was publishing monthly numbers for EVALI and sort of looking through, but now because of COVID, they sort of have been updating very slowly on this. But as of February 18, 2020, so this was a year ago at that point, but this was as of the time when it was discovered in August of 2019 to February 18th, 2020, a total of 2,807 hospitalized EVALI cases or deaths were reported and had been reported to the CDC in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and two U.S. territories, including the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So there were 68 deaths to have been confirmed in the District of Columbia and 29 states. And what they sort of saw is that there were a couple of things going on right now. And I do have a lot of links that we can sort of look at as we're going through this. But I'm sort of surmising a lot of the information that are in these resources. But I do have the resources listed at the end of the presentation so that if you are looking for any new information or anything that I had addressed, you can go over this presentation with me while looking at these resources, because it will be on the YouTube channel as well. So there's that as well. So they sort of realized that there were some things that were kind of wrong with the lungs, and they hadn't really realized what exactly was happening to the lungs until they, excuse the term for a second, but took x-rays and looked inside. And what they found was that there was a lot of scar tissue and it was irreparable damage. and the irreparable damage, meaning that that wasn't something that you could take back. That wasn't something that you could rehabilitate. That was something that was going to stay there and sort of mess with the lung tissues, because it had, in its own right, had rewritten the way that the cells were produced and the way that the cells presented themselves in the lung tissue. There are quite a few different types of juices that end up in these devices. EVALI is based on vaping products. And if you don't know anything about vaping products, I did a series last week with Melissa, and we were talking about vaping. So if you are new to this or not really understanding this, you can refer to that video first. And I did want to touch upon quickly, CNN sort of was talking about how the Black market was finding its way into teens' circles, and how they were sort of looking through this. And what they had really found was that EVALI was associated with Black market juices. That is correct. But there were quite a different range of what was happening here. And a lot of people said it's only associated with THC oils. And I have a picture here that says legal THC oil that is in vaping pens. It has pure THC and then terpenes, which sort of helps with the way that it's put into a vapor. But then you also have the illegal parts, which are pure THC, and then you have the cutting agents and the terpenes. So that basically means the cutting agent can be anything that helps the THC mix with the heating agent and then become a vapor. Now, while it's mixing with that, because it can be anything, that really means it can be anything. So a lot of the time they found a commonality with vitamin E oil. And I'm going to be talking about that in a second. Sorry, just trying to get this back here. But I do want to preface with saying that while we were talking about these patients that had EVALI, they were ranging from 13 to 85, but 15% of these patients were under 18 years old. So we are going to be discussing this age group in particular, but it is a danger to all age groups. And they actually found the millennial group, or a little bit less than the millennial group, the higher part of the Gen Z group, 37% of patients were 18 to 24 years old. So this is concerning, but also to know that vaping in general is meant to be 21 and older. And this is concerning for that reason, because so many people and so many different groups were given access to something that wasn't meant for their age group in the first place. So this is a definite concern for a lot of people. And also 50% of EVALI patients reported using THC contained products, but that doesn't mean that that other 50% had THC products. And we're sort of going to talk about that of the 2022 hospitalized patients that were talking about substance abuse, 82% reported using THC products. 33% reported using exclusive THC products, 57% reported using containing nicotine products, and 14% said exclusive nicotine products. And a range of people found that they were sort of buying it from legal sources and illegal sources. So these legal sources, about 16% reported getting them from online sources that were technically verified, and 78% were acquired through the black market. I also do want to talk about here, I do have a picture here in the next slide, but I do have it here as well. It is the puff bar. So this is something that is kind of finding its way. It's a single-use product, and I see Melissa's face because this is something that we find a lot in our field, but it's also something that is sort of on the rise. I guess you can sort of put it as the new Juul in a lot of ways, because Juul has been sort of blacklisted as something that you shouldn't use. But that doesn't mean that they're not finding other sources of information and other sources for these products. So here I actually have on the side the disposable e-cigarettes, but they are technically used to boost your energy. So when you're using them, they're how do I put this? They're vaping products that you can use for like a drink that you can get for Gatorade. You're like, oh, I want to feel revived today. Oh, I want to feel energized today. You can use these vapes because they have those sort of marketing tools on the side. So If you want to have a boost in your energy, then you can have this particular vape. If you want to have something that's vital to your body, then you can have the one all the way to the right. So that is concerning. And also the thing with this is that because they are disposable, when you have an e-cigarette, they have something called stoppers in them, where that when you hit enough, it sort of stops how much you inhale. With these, there's no stopper, meaning that you can, in theory, if you really wanted to try, puff the disposable bar all the way until it's empty. And that in itself is a problem. It presents a lot of issues concerning nicotine overdose, but also in general, that's not necessarily good for your lungs in any capacity. Um, so there is that. And that is, Melissa, I believe you said that some of these can also be as low as 99 cents when they're purchased. And I think that's also something to be concerned with, because you don't have to be an adult making your own money to buy these products. So I'm going to get back to vitamin E acetate just for a second, because this is something that was found in so many of the black market e-cigarettes. Vitamin acetate is used as an additive, mostly in the THC portions of these vapes. It's also found in things like food, vegetable oils, vegetables, hair products, creams, basically anything that sort of makes our lives cosmetically easier. I myself use vitamin E for my hair, if anyone has noticed. So it is something that we can use. Thank you, Melissa. It is something that we can use as an everyday product that is as normal. And also you can take vitamin E like supplements. So I also take vitamin E supplements. So I take them in the mornings. Now, this in itself sort of gives people this false sense of security, because if you're saying, oh, I can eat it, then it's not that, like, that's a step from vaping it. That's only one step from eating it to inhaling it. That's just one difference in the scientific equation, right? So when you are looking at these sorts of people that are looking at saying, oh, I want to make sure what I put into my body is the best thing for me. Well, is it really, considering that it's FDA approved to use externally to ingest internally, but it's not FDA approved to inhale internally directly into your lungs? So does anybody have any questions about that? If you do have questions, you can put it in the chat. I don't think we're anything for now. Oh, it says, where can these puff bars be purchased? My apologies. These puff bars that I referred to on the last slide can be purchased. You can find them in any vaping stores. You can find them online. And I will actually show you several different, another one in the chat. In New Jersey, you used to be able to buy them everywhere. You could buy other tobacco products, but there has been some limitations with the new regulations. All right, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. But once again, if you're 21 and older entering a vaping shop, that doesn't mean that they're going to adhere to these policies. And that doesn't mean that these people that want to make money aren't going to be selling these disposable cigarettes. And also you can find them on Amazon. For example, I found them on Amazon. You can get a pack of 20 for $18, $17. So, and they don't necessarily age verify these, which I will show you on another slide, because I went through my niece's Gmail account, who was 10 years old, and I did it using her Gmail account, and I looked through everything while under her name. So I will be talking about that in a bit as well. So I did want to touch upon the vaping juices continued, because these are what they look like. So if you or your child sort of come across these, or any sort of children that you're working with, these are kind of what they look like. This is more so the THC stuff over here. You have different flavors, and this is sort of something that Juul was really targeted with when they sort of got canceled with our cancel culture, that they were saying, you're making products, or you're making flavors that every child would want to have. So for example, they would sort of make something like Candy King. And if you look, Candy King looks a lot like Sour Patch Kids. Melissa had pointed this out in the last presentation. So if you're looking more into getting into that sort of psychology, then you can refer to the last presentation. But I did want to show what these vaping juices look like, and these nicotine concentrations. These nicotine concentrations, a cigarette in itself has about 2.5%, give or take, and the vaping juice has about 5% nicotine. So that's twice the amount of what a regular cigarette would have. And we do have quite a bit of range here. And also when you have these products, these particular products, I was on a vaping website and I found sort of these candied flavors, and they were technically homemade. So these people, if you have the tools for it, if you have the money, if you have the time, you can make your own vaping juice and sell it online for whatever market value you want to make a profit. If anybody has any reactions for this. Yeah, they look, thank you, Heidi. Yes, they look like ring pops. You're right. So there's just sort of like this friendly packaging that happens where you sort of interact with it differently if you're saying, oh, it doesn't have this like prescription, like if you look on cigarettes, there's like this very much like warning in the back that has a lot of saying, you're going to be exposed to this, right? But here you don't necessarily see the popcorn lung or the EVALI that comes through. You don't see those pictures because it's not FDA approved yet. So did the discovery of EVALI hurt the sales of cigarettes? I do want to talk about this in the context of 2020 and 2021. So specifically, the sales of disposable cigarettes increased from 10.3% to the total sales of August 2019 to 19.8% by May 2020. Menthol flavored products increased a lot because a lot of the flavored products were taken off the market. And menthol is something that is the I guess the Wish version or Wish.com version of all these flavors, right? Because when you have menthol, it sort of is a flavor, but it's also something that's very cooling, and it helps people take the hit easier when they are smoking. But I did want to talk about this. So if you're talking about August 2019 to May 2020, is the age group buying something we are worried about? Like, is it the 13 to 21-year-olds that are buying these vaping products? And short answer is yes. Long answer is yes. But when you are forced to stay at home and you're forced to interact with your parents constantly, it's less easy to obtain these products. And it's less easy to sort of hide them at school when you're vaping in the bathrooms and things like that. So we don't necessarily have those types of concerns. And EVALI in itself, with its discovery, did sort of shift the conversation about how good or bad it is for people. But at the same time, I do want to bring in the argument that, is it a coping skill? Is vaping something that could be a coping skill, especially for something or a time that is so stressful, considering we are in the middle of a pandemic? So there are different variants here that we have. And can children buy this and use it around their families? Yes and no. It really does depend on how vigilant we are in seeing what they use and how vigilant we can be when they are purchasing these sorts of products. So when we sort of are looking at this as well, there's a study on NPR that is cited underneath this slide. When we're sort of unraveling the difficulty of the outbreak, what they sort of found was that because of the discovery of EVALI, the products that the EVALI came from were so varied and so vast that they could not pinpoint one particular brand that said, oh, this particular brand is using vitamin E acetate, therefore we can no longer use it. They found that it came from many different sources. And in the 86 patients in Wisconsin and Illinois, they were using 234 different types of vaping products, meaning, how can you break down those types of products and say, this is good for them, this is bad for them? There's so much more research that is required of us and of the, scientists that are sort of surrounding these conversations and discourse for us to say that it's good or bad. There's nothing for us to say, yes, this is something that can be used. There's no product on the market right now that doesn't have the potential to give EVALI to any particular population. I know that's kind of heavy hitting, but if you do have any questions, just refer to the chat while we're doing this. So how does peer pressure play a role? We're sort of going to be talking about this for a second because I think that it is important, and that peer pressure really does play a huge part in how people were first starting to vape. I know that particularly I'm 25, meaning that vaping wasn't really present for me until I was in high school. So when we're sort of looking through this, or sorry, and not even high school, university actually, and you sort of walk through the campus and have like a cloud that smelled like cookies, and I'm like, oh, where are the cookies? And it was never cookies, and that sort of made me very upset. I was like, stop false advertising. But it turns out it was someone vaping, on campus. So you have these sorts of these moments where you're just breathing in people's exhales that you don't really want to do, but that's just sort of happens. So peer pressure does play a role in this. I do want to say that it can be good and it can be bad in the way that we're talking about EVALI and vaping and usage. I do have these. I'm going to click on these links quickly. That watch truth.com sort of has their like, let's kick vaping, let's make sure that we're not using it. Truth Initiative also has a huge TikTok hashtag vaping like sort of video series where when you're scrolling through the vaping hashtag on TikTok, which I will show later, you have a lot of people that are talking about how vaping affects the body. So, and you also have people and teenagers and influencers that are buying into these sorts of initiatives and these videos for them to counteract a lot of the misinformation and a lot of the harmful information that can come out through this. So I have this on here as well. I have the video on here. I'm not going to be playing it just because it just starts to talk about the information that we're talking about. Melissa, yes.
I just want to throw in a little pitch here. The Truth Initiative has partnered with Tobacco Free for Healthy New Jersey for the youth especially, and they've designed a quit program through texting, and that will be launched sometime next month. So that will probably be on our council website and all of our social medias. But Truth Initiative has been a leader in tobacco prevention for youth for about a decade now. So we're really excited about that. So just wanted to throw that little pitch while you had Truth up there.
No, that was amazing. Thank you. And when this video comes out, which will be later today, I will be putting that resource once it's updated underneath the YouTube description so that anybody that looks at it can sort of refer to that resource as well. So there are quite a few challenges for youth to participate in the e-cigarette sort of stuff going on. Excuse me. And we'll be talking about the challenges that happen on these social medias later. These challenges are disturbing in their own right, but also something that we can sort of see was happening because social media sorts of become its own thing, and the think tank sort of grows and grows, and the actions of other peers sort of become bigger and bigger each time the challenge is accepted. So they were sort of looking at, and I was looking at newsmedical.net, and they were talking about peer pressure at schools and how it actually affects people using vapes. So they found that when they were looking at high school students, they did a study of 65,000 middle and high school students to determine what sort of factors would lead them to using. And they found that a lot of high rates of vaping happen through bathrooms, happen through recess, happen through in the middle of class, because when vaping comes out, it doesn't come out as a cigarette smell. It comes out as a cotton candy or a cookie, like as I was saying, when you're walking through campus at university. So they found that also when they're doing this and when children are exposed to this, they are less likely, especially when they see their peers vaping, they are less likely to believe that vaping is not good for them, especially when you're seeing the cool kids, vaping and sort of doing tricks with their smoke. So that was especially concerning. But I also wanted to put a statistic out there that said between 2017 and 2018, so this was only 3 years ago, the number of high school students using e-cigarettes doubled in 1 year. And that was through the CDC and prevention agencies reporting these use of e-cigarettes as well. So if anybody has any questions about that, definitely put that in the chat. All right, we'll be moving on. So we'll be talking about social media and its role. I actually did want to, I don't mean to sound so satirical when I started to talk about this, but this was something that I thought was kind of funny, but also something that it's so mainstream for us to do that now people are teaching others how to make coffee vaping juice. And I sort of wanted to look at that video quickly. Yeah, I see some people's faces in here, and yes, it is a reality, and it is something that is happening. So here it is. And I'll just be sifting through it. We don't have to watch the whole thing.
We're gonna start with some whole bean coffee, a coffee grinder, 1 tablespoon, and a mason jar. Take 1 tablespoon of the whole bean coffee, add it to your grinder, grind it up. And after you're done grinding, you're going to pour it into the mason jar. Next, we're gonna 5 milliliters for a total of 25, and go ahead and add that. We're gonna go again for another 10 milliliters. Go ahead and add that again to the mason jar. And finally, we're gonna take 5 milliliters for a total of 25, and go ahead and add that PG into the mason jar. Now let's take a...
So basically, does anyone know what that liquid is that she's putting in there for them to, yeah, I just wanted, yeah, Melissa?
Polypropylene glycol.
Yes, so propylene glycol is the thing that a lot of people use as an additive to make something smoke. A lot of people think vapor and they're like, oh, it must be water, right? No, it's usually not. It's usually just something that is an oil or some sort of oily substance for them to have this sort of interesting and intricate smoke when the vapor comes out. So I just wanted to touch upon that really quickly, where there's technically no nicotine in this, but there is definitely things that shouldn't be in your body, you know, such as the oil that we were talking about earlier. So not great. And she says it's good for the morning. So I wonder how that is when you're going through that. I also have another video that I'm going to share quickly. This video in particular has been very popular. Yeah, Heidi, it has 1.6 million views, meaning it's very accessible for people to look at this sort of stuff, right? So I have another one where this particular gentleman was looking through what vaping and smoking did to the lungs, and he actually used cotton balls as a subject. So he put smoking, excuse me, the little thing is not letting me do the thing, but he put cotton balls in a particular container, had the smoke through a pack of cigarettes, and then he had a cotton ball container full of, and then he put vaping products through the particular container. So, all right, so here it is. It says 29, almost 30 million views, by the way. Go through here. Obviously, you see the smoking and the tar coming through. So he's going through an entire pack of cigarettes while he's doing this.
Of course, this was not a scientific test.
Okay, so I am glad that he sort of put that as the disclaimer, because no, it is not a scientific test by any means. But this is the sort of stuff that people are looking for to validate their vaping addiction, and them wanting to say, well, vaping's not that bad for me then, is it? Compared to smoking, I could be smoking, you know, I mean, vaping is just easier, right? But what he didn't do was he didn't really look at the cotton balls themselves. Obviously, smoking, you could sort of visually see the discoloration. But Melissa had pointed out earlier before we did this was that he didn't weigh the cotton balls, that he didn't sort of see what sort of tissue would happen with the cotton balls, how the structure had changed, anything like that. And because it is a vaping tool, you know, obviously a lot of people say it's a cleaner hit when they're sort of using these sorts of devices, but that doesn't mean that it's because it's healthier, that doesn't mean it's healthy for you or that is good for you. And we're sort of seeing that through. And because so many people were using this video to validate their vaping addiction or them using these vaping products, that is cause for concern. And it's on a platform that a lot of young people use to sort of look at information. And also, he's sort of said like the tubes are your neck or your throat. And quite frankly, I think our throats are too intricate to be compared to a plastic tubing, in my particular opinion, because of the nuances, the people, the interactions with the cells that we have in our own bodies. We are too particular and unique for us to say this is exactly how it would interact with our bodies. But that's obviously my 2 cents about it. So we were talking about the vaping hashtag on TikTok. There is quite a different field here on TikTok where they are looking at vaping, and TikTok are heavily associated together. And that's just the reality of it. So I had 2 weeks ago, I had looked at this hashtag. It was about 364 million. A week ago, I looked at it, it was about 400 million. In 5 days ago, it was 411 million. So we're going to click on it and see how many videos are related to vaping now. So it is 413.4 million, and that was the number from 2 days ago. So in 2 days, we have 2 million more views on these videos for vaping. So as you can see, there are a lot of people that are vaping here. A lot of them are life hacks. And also they have a lot of things that are like personality vapes. So if you vape this particular juice, or if you use this particular vape, this is what it says about your personality. So it's very normalized in the way that they're sort of presenting these vices and this information. And it can be scary where you're saying, you know, what is the commonality here? Oh yeah, any famous influencers? Yes. So not necessarily ones that I could find. A lot of them are a little bit lower on their food chain, excuse the term for a second. But yes, there are people that have been seen using vapes that are famous, such as Charlie D'Amelio, Tony Rogers, a couple of other people on there. So it's not as if they say, oh, I'm vaping, you know, here, look at me. But it's more like it's subliminal in the way that they present it. So there are some famous TikTokers on here. I personally am not that invested in TikTok to know which famous TikTokers do vape and which don't, but there is enough out here and enough access and information for us to look at, for us to say they don't need to be famous in order for them to be influential. So there's a lot of stuff on there. So I did want to put it out there that, you know, that's what we're facing. That's what we're dealing with. And it's TikTok, meaning it is a platform for self-expression. And when you do have this platform for self-expression, you don't want to take that away from children because you want them to look at these sorts of things. Yes, Melissa.
I just wanted to say that that's only the term vaping.
Yeah.
Like if you were to put something else, like even vape or, you know, liquid, or you have e-juice. So there's a lot more possibilities as well, but go on. Yeah. I mean, we've seen stuff for sale everywhere on TikTok, especially.
Yes. And thank you, Melissa. You're right. And that's just with the blatant, we're talking about vaping right now. I have one particular thing last week that I was talking about where there's actually a vaping a challenge where you do your makeup to a vaping song. Where they are talking or singing about vaping in the background and you are doing your makeup to it. So even if you want to say, I want to look at the makeup TikTok, you know, maybe there's something really interesting of self-expression I can do on there. And you come across someone doing makeup while talking about vaping or while vaping is somehow in that conversation. So it's not something that is escapable. It's something that is very present and it's something that can be pushed through narratives, especially when the Generation Z is sort of perpetuating a lot of these hashtags. Excuse me. So I also did want to talk about quickly how influencers on social media, not in particular TikTok, but there was evidence, and CNN did an article on it saying that influencer marketing, we're talking about e-cigarettes, and that e-cigarette companies were pairing with influencers to market to teens or their particular audiences. So it's not as if something out of the realm of possibility. It's not saying that, a certain platform is more likely to have this sort of hashtag or this sort of thing. It's that influencers in general, whether they're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Discord, Fortnite, all of that, they're working with these influencers to market their products. And that doesn't mean it's meant for teens or it's meant for people that are under the age of 21, but it does find that these people are still part of that population. Because I know that my niece in particular, she watches a lot of gaming channels because she likes gaming. And there were times where they were talking about products, not necessarily vaping products, but they do talk about products while they're pairing up with these influencers. So I didn't find that shocking, but it was something that we suspected, and it just sort of happened, right? Also, I did look at a Stanford study. Once again, all these resources are listed at the end, and they will be listed in the YouTube description, that they were talking about a short viewing of Instagram posts and found that the effects on teens while they're using Instagram and while they're using social media had that they're seeing posts about vaping all the time. And this could have a really meaningful impact. And later in the study, they found that people who are part of social media and who are active every day on social media have a lackadaisical approach to drug use and substance use in general. That the more exposed they are to these social medias, the more likely they are to think that vaping is less of a big deal, that drinking is less of a big deal, marijuana use is less of a big deal. So it was a very interesting study, very long, but something that is worth anyone's time that is sort of looking at the influence of social media on children in particular and how it relates to peer pressure as well. So we're talking about tactics of PR agencies using influencers. And, that doesn't say that, big business is not part of this. Big business is definitely a part of this. It's not small town, people trying to get their product out there. It's like big businesses that are multinational corporations pairing with these influencers and putting ads on Instagram and Facebook and things like that for people to see and for them to interact with. So it's not just people trying to get their name out there. It's people that already have their name out there that want to make more money off of the next generation. I'm just going to check the chat really quickly to make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think so. So also, I did want to also talk about quickly that when you're talking about influencers aren't just people that are free friends. And I did talk about this where when you have people in a time of age of isolation, that people can be free friends. When you sort of interact with them, they're a lifestyle person, they're a lifestyle influencer, they're going out, you're eating with them, you're, drinking coffee with them in the morning when they're sort of vlogging their daily lives. But this particular person is a periodontist, meaning that they are a certified medical professional, and they are talking about vaping really being bad for you. And I will play the whole thing, or I'm going to play as much of it as I can, just because I want to show that influence doesn't necessarily mean you have to be famous. It just means that you have to have a title associated with your legitimacy. And if it's legitimate, then it can be there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Nemeth. I'm a periodontist in Southfield, Michigan. And I want to talk a little. Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Nemeth. I'm a periodontist in Southfield, Michigan. And I want to talk a little bit more about vaping. Now, a while back, I did something on vaping, showing studies about how vaping harms the tissues in the mouth.
Vaping
the nicotine causes constriction of blood vessels, and overall, at least in the mouth and probably other areas, vaping is not helpful. However, this is in defense of vaping. And they did a recent study, and this was in the New England Journal of Medicine, and I think this is really, really, really important. And that is, they took a large group of people who wanted to stop smoking. Half of them they gave e-cigarettes to, and the other half, they could choose whatever they wanted for nicotine substitution, like a patch, like chewing gum. It turned out many more people were successful using e-cigarettes, let's call it vaping, than any other method of smoking cessation. And a year later, 18% of those using e-cigarettes had stopped smoking, whereas only 9-point-something% of those using other methods that they chose had stopped smoking.
Okay, so he's sort of going to go on with the study. If you want to look at the study itself, he does give the link in the description to look at the study. But I sort of wanted to reiterate that he is a periodontist, meaning he is someone that does dental implants. This particular thing is not a field of study that he has a degree in, and it is something that, you know, the rest of his channel talks about teeth and how it sort of interacts with your body, and, you know, like what foods can you eat, what drinks can you drink, sort of things like that. So when you go out of the field of your particular expertise, setting studies is really important, but he also doesn't say these people ages XYZ to XYZ. He doesn't say that children in particular who needed to quit started vaping. He doesn't say adults that needed to quit started vaping. There's no particularities in the way that he's putting his sentences together. And that means that there's nothing to legitimize what he's saying unless he really gets down to the specificities of the study. And I don't think he does that correctly. But at the same time, if you do look at the video itself, underneath the YouTube comments are filled with people that sound young, where they're saying, oh, I guess vaping is better for me. Or, oh, I guess, you know, vaping isn't so bad. So it sort of gives this permission from this particular influencer with this title of being a doctor for them to vape and for them to be okay with vaping. And I just did want to point that out because it is something that is concerning, and it is something that is very real. You have a lot of people outside of their field of expertise doing videos on stuff like this saying vaping isn't that bad for you. And anybody can make a video about this in particular, but it also shows that if you're not specific with your words and you're not specific with your behavior, then it doesn't show that you are actually taking the subject seriously. So there's my 2 cents about that. I don't think anybody has any questions, but once again, we can refer to the chat. So I did want to talk about quickly where this particular thing, I went with my niece's account, who is 10 years old, with a Gmail. And I started looking through some vaping products that we could do. Vaping.com is a notorious one for myself in particular. If you watched the video last week with Melissa, you'll understand why. But so, you know, if you click on this, it just sort of says, all right, how much do you want for this? And then you can put it in the cart, and it doesn't ask for an age. There's no particular, like, are you 21? So check out, you just need, I have my my credit card linked to this, so I'm not going to check out. But the point is that when you do check out, it doesn't ask for identity verification. And that in particular is a problem. This was the one where if you go into Vape Royalty, they do ask if you were 21 or older. They didn't ask me right now because this is something that I clicked on previously. But this does have, are you 21 or older on it? Yeah, see, there we go. But if I say yes, or if I say no, I don't think it really matters because I could just say yes, even if I'm not 21. And there's also this one here, e-liquid depot, vape juice. This one does have an age requirement for you to buy their products, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to, I don't have to do anything except verify the age. So I can look these products just fine. I can, you know, how much nicotine do I want in there? 3% to 6%. I can add to cart. I can check out. And there's nothing requiring me to put any sort of license in here. I can just put my contact information and that's it. So yeah, first name, shipping, United States, continue to shipping. It doesn't have anything verifying my identity. So that is something that is a little scary. I also did it with my niece's Gmail account, meaning that she was linked to this and that any sort of advertisements would be associated with her age. So if I clicked on this, then, you know, so I find that quite shocking. But that is also something that is pretty realistic. So what does the mailing packaging look like? Good. Okay, thank you, Heidi, for that. So the mailing and packaging usually tends to be like a box that is very plain looking. It's not necessarily something that you're saying, oh, you know, that's a package that is meant for an adult. It just looks like a package. Sometimes because they are coming from these places that tend to be a little bit more black market, they come in boxes that look very discreet or in plastic, like black plastic packaging. So you really can't see what's inside either. So there's no way in peeking inside. It doesn't come with like a clear plastic bag or like saying vaping.com, you know, here's the label. It just comes from the seller's address or whatever sort of like place it's coming from and the address to the person that it's sent to. So the packaging can be very discreet, yes. I also have here some vaping illnesses linked to black market dank vapes. Dank vapes in particular was one of the enemies of EVALI. And if you want to read this study, NPR did a great job on covering this. But I just wanted to point out that once again, like THC oils, dank vapes is like known for their THC oils, but that doesn't mean that the EVALI only came from THC oil. It doesn't mean that these black market nicotine vapes can't hurt you in the same way that these THC black market vapes can't hurt you. So that's basically the end of the scientific parts and all the studies. But a lot of it is, you know, you sort of feel helpless, right? When you're sort of looking at this and you're like, what do I do? You know, like what's the thing that I can do to help my child make the best decision? You know, I think the answers are very obvious. Being involved with children, most times drug use is used as a coping mechanism. So making sure that they are well-rounded and, you know, happy and healthy. And if they're not happy, and they're not healthy, what can you do? How can you help? Recognizing changes in behavior. So if they're more irritable, if they're more angry, if they stay in their room a lot more, if they're anxious, all of those things, noticing that this isn't like what my child usually is, then you can sort of look through some of those responses. Also modeling good habits, you know, for example, if you do vape as an adult, try not to do it around your child. You know, something like that, because the more exposure a child has to, you know, bad habits, the more likely they are to think that it's okay for them to do it as well. Also knowing what vaping products look like, that's truly important, because last week, once again, I'm going to refer to the video of last week, but we did talk about vaping products and what they look like. So you can also refer to that as well. But these vaping products do blend in with a lot of school supplies. So it is something that needs to be addressed. And also having open and honest dialogue with your child, you know, saying, hey, how's life? How are you doing? How's school? Anything going on? And it might not be you that they want to talk to, but it could be someone that is trusted, and making sure that they go to that trusted person and saying how they're feeling so that they can get the help they need, regardless of what the help looks like. So I always end with a quote on all of my presentations. This particular quote is, like your freshman year GPA, when it comes to your body's health, there are no do-overs. And especially when it comes to EVALI, it is not something that can be taken lightly. It is something that can really hurt your health. It is deadly, and it is something that can affect you for the rest of your life if you do get out alive. So it is harsh, but it is a reality, and it is something that does need to be addressed. And also making sure that preventative measures are the best way to have those discussions. All right, thank you, Heidi, I appreciate that. So if you are looking for the resources, I have them listed at the end, but also I will have them listed in the YouTube description when we are done. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience and your feedback. And I hope to see you again next week.